All right, my guest this morning is Carolyn Hickman. Carolyn Hickman is a self-publishing author, intuitive energy healer, plus herbalist who loves helping others heal their past and transcend their pain into their purpose. Carolyn reveals her unimaginable journey of not only losing her mother, but losing almost everyone she had ever known, all at the very same time, through a series of painful events that left her breathless, betrayed, and broken. I can relate to that. However, even in the most challenging and darkest of days, she discovered how to let go of the pain and resentment gracefully and overcome the resistance to forgive the people not willing to make things right or say, quote, sorry, unquote. Carolyn, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reading Circle microphones, Carolyn Hickman. Carolyn, again, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mark, for having me on. I appreciate you.
Well, I tell you what, I appreciate you as well, especially, and I was telling the audience earlier how this whole interview came about in terms of I had read your book and I wrote a review. And you know, as I do for many books, I don't write a review for all of them, but I write a review for many of them. And I wrote a review for Carolyn's book, and lo and behold, Carolyn read it. Because somewhere in the review, I said I would love to interview her on the Book Talk radio show. So she reaches out to me and says, "Oh my God, I read your interview. Thank you so much. I'm interested in appearing." And then I reached back out to her and said, "Guess what? This Saturday is available if you don't mind doing a last minute thing, or if you're open." And she hits me back up again and says, "I'm available." And so that is how we are here this morning. So her book is Forgiving When You Can't Forget. Releasing fear and trauma from your past so you can have freedom in your future. And the author of that book is my guest this morning, Carolyn Hickman. So, Carolyn, I don't have a set question list, but I usually do start off with one question because I kind of like to start from the beginning and work our way up for the listening audience. And that is, was it your desire or dream as a kid to become an author? Was it your intent to write a book? Or like when you were in school, did you say, I'm going to be an author? Where did this whole notion of becoming an author or writing a book start?
Of course. I just thought I would be this world-renowned author. And no, I'm just kidding. No. I had no idea. And, of course, especially on a topic such as forgiveness, never in a million years would I ever thought. And I still to this day have to kind of pinch me and realize, remind myself, did I really write a book? People they message me or they hit me up or something happens and they're like, I loved your book. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. I wrote that book, and it kind of fell my plate and a part of my healing journey myself. So, no, I absolutely was not prepared for or planned to write a book at any point in my life, but I am sure happy I did.
Well, they say writing can be cathartic. And in other words, writing in itself is a form of therapy. And I find that to be true to a certain degree as well, because I do journal. I've journaled for years. Matter of fact, when I went through one experience back in the mid-2000s, 2003, 2004, 2005, open area, journaled really quite frequently. Then over the years, it kind of dropped off a little bit, and I started journaling again. Seems like I think I journal whenever I'm going through things. I think that's what tends to happen is when I'm really going through something. But as I read your book, as I said in my review, and as I said to you a couple of minutes ago, absolutely loved it because it resonated with me. Because as we were saying, a lot of times people think whatever they go through, that they're the only ones, that no one else in the world has not gone through what I've gone through, or has, it doesn't have to be the exact same experience, but you go through something that really throws you.
Yes, absolutely. To say the very least.
Exactly. To say the least is right. It really, as they say, rocks your world. Like, what the heck? Where did that come from? How did that happen? How did I get in this? I mean, it really does. And so did the events come in your mind like, you know what, I got to get this down on paper? How did you decide, all right, this happened to me, I'm going to write a book about it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. I always say, I say this now. I didn't say this in the moment. I want to clarify that because as you start out and you're in the moment, it's hard to even kind of think straight. But, life is always happening for us. We can sit there and remain in like a victim role and say, life is happening to me, this is happening to me. But when we realize that life is happening for us, it's such a different mindset shift. Because when you're in it, it's like, there were so many moments when I was going through this myself, and, you have to just really be like, what is going on? But during your journey here, that's all the stuff's coming through for me. It's just really flipping the narrative to be like, life is happening for me. It's happening for me, and we can go one of two ways, and whatever's meant to be is meant to be, right? And yeah, I don't know. That's just coming through right now.
Well, you know what is interesting in terms of, it's one word difference, the difference between 2 and the difference between 4. We're talking about FOR and TO, not FOUR and TWO. We're talking, and don't mind my sense of humor because it's whack. It's crazy too.
That.
And so we're literally talking FOR and TO. There's a difference between life is happening for you and life is happening to you. How do you get to that? How do you shift? How do you shift that mindset to get to that point? Well, you know what? This is happening for me. It's not happening to me.
Yeah, I would say for me, it shifted when I had 2 options, right? And most of us do when we're in a traumatic situation. We can either stay in that victim role, and I always say we have stories. Everybody has a story, and it's whether we want to sit there and constantly remain in this low vibration and just constantly defend ourselves and try to make the world see our point of view and understand where I'm coming from. And I like to say word vomit on everybody, right? We just word vomit. We're just going, saying, just look at me. And it comes to a place where I'm like, this is not serving me. I don't feel good. At the end of the day, whether I'm stating my side of the story, I'm yelling, I'm screaming, I'm crying, whatever I'm going through in the moment, is this really serving me? How am I feeling? It's always that check-in moment, right? Where, how am I feeling? Is this serving me? Is this for my highest vibration? How are the people around me? How are they feeling? Right? Just that little check-in moment is such a massive shift. And when I realized that, I was like, you know what? It's not my duty to make other people understand where I'm coming from. It's not my duty in this life to defend myself, right? We all have these lives, and if people are choosing to see the very worst in you, it's just, they're just coming from where they are in life, and that's okay. So understanding and having a mutual understanding that not everybody's going to understand you in this life, and not everybody's going to understand where you're coming from, and all that, because most definitely they're going through something of their own. 9 times out of 10, when you come across somebody and they're projecting towards you, or they don't understand your story, or it's because they're going through their own stuff. And so if we can kind of have this mindset shift where we're like, hey, you know what? They might have lashed out at me. They might have said something. They might have done something, and it doesn't feel good to me. But let me check in and be like, hey, they're really grieving themselves, or they're having a hard challenge in their life. Maybe it has nothing to do with me. Maybe their conversation, what they're saying to me, has nothing to do with me and everything to do with them. And if we can all realize that, that I always say that right now in this world where we get very offended very easily, we have a lot of emotions, a lot of things going on because a lot of us have unhealed trauma, right? These things that we have no idea that everybody's going through. And if we can just get to a next level of compassion and understanding that we're all just human and we're going and, like I say, growing through a lot of things, we can come from a better standpoint of compassion. And that's kind of what really stemmed for me. It really hit home for me where I'm like, you know what? This isn't me. These events happened, quote unquote, to me, right? But if I can look at this and say they're happening for me in some capacity, and this is allowing me to grow and my soul to grow and evolve, and what better way to allow my soul to be able to heal from this all and then be able to help others and then show the compassion the world really needs. So,
oh my goodness, you said so many. This is one time now. Normally I can kind of flow without writing anything down. I don't have a pen and paper in front of me, but you said so many words there that I want to figure out. I heard the word projection. I heard the word, let me see, I got to think about them when it comes together. So many things that you said that I want to unpack there of what you said. And I know projection was one of them. The fact that whatever someone, when they do something heinous or horrendous, is really about what's going on within them. I heard the compassion. I heard energy. And I heard vibration. That's what it was. So I heard vibration, energy, projection, what's going on inside of the other person really doesn't have anything to do with you, but yet it feels like it does. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to go back a little bit in terms of what you were talking about. Do I really want to stay stuck here and being the victim? So needless to say, I don't think you have a whole lot to do for pity parties.
No, not at all. Not anymore. I used to. I like to say I'm human. I've been there, but it didn't serve me very well, and it never felt good. I mean, can we honestly ever say, any of us, when we're having our pity party, it feels good sometimes in the moment. We're like, yeah, and then we're like, okay, what did that really do for me overall? Nothing. I'm still in the same predicament.
And see, that's what brought that to mind when you were talking about it, when you kept asking that question, well, what is this doing for me? And what is it doing for my energy and the people around me and so forth and so on? That's what brought that to mind, the whole pity party thing. But you also talked about this whole notion of someone else doing something because they're projecting onto you what's really going on inside of them.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I would say when you go through your levels of compassion and forgiveness, there's layers. I always say it's like peeling back an onion, right? So once you discover one thing, then you discover another thing. And I think the big thing comes to is really understanding that with forgiveness and compassion, it's just multi-layered. And what was that? So I guess repeat that question real quick because I'm going somewhere else too. So
No, I need you to keep going where you were going. Keep going. Keep going where you were going.
Okay, so with the peeling back of the layers, it just comes down to understanding that when we can understand that predicament that we're in, and if we're in that moment, and we can say, listen, I have two options in this world. I have two options in this life. I can either stay in this unforgiving, rough, challenging time that I'm going through where I feel like everybody and everything is kind of attacking me, right? Like, this has all happened to me. I feel these rough feelings. I feel like I want to hold on to my story. I feel like I want to just project, and realize that at the end of the day, and I say this with the utmost compassion because I was there. I went through the levels when I first was going through this event of my own where I would just feel like I was sharing my story with everybody, and you would just see in their eye, they're like, there's just this confusion or this compassion, or there would be, they're just like, wow. You can see in their eyes where they're just like, oh my gosh, you poor thing, or they're like, wow, you're crazy. Right? There's one of two options that you're going through. And so when I'm like, what am I doing? It just took that step back for me, realizing, you know what? Like, whether I'm going to sit there and share my story with this person or share my story with this person, does it really matter what they think of me? Does it really matter what they're projecting onto me with their own unhealed trauma? Because what's happening is, if you're not triggering somebody in this life, are you really living? That's a big statement I have here, because when we say something to whatever circle you have, whether it's your friends, family, they're going to operate and respond from their unhealed trauma point, right? So if you triggered them, it's because something in you was unhealed within them. And so their response is going to mimic that. Their response is going to show you where they're at, not necessarily where they're trying to be compassionate for you, because everybody's always like, they're in their own bubble. They're in their own life, and they're just trying to be able to help you from the best particular, spot that they are at. But if they're at a different level, or if they went through their own traumatic experience not too long ago, well, then they're just going to come at you with all their unhealed trauma. And then here you are in this cesspool of unhealed trauma, at the end of the day, just blah, 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 right? And then you're like, oh, I just feel so yucky, right?
Right. And it's interesting because in terms of my event or my trauma, I can count on my two hands the number of people that I shared with. I think the number is maybe 8 or 9 now, maybe 10. I might have gotten past the 10 fingers. I don't think so, though, because my circle that I actually shared everything with is extremely small, because I don't talk about it other than to say, folks know something happened. We don't know what, but something happened. And maybe they can, based on social media posts or hearing my podcast or listening to the show, they might have been able to piece it together and figure it together. But very few people have I shared actually what happened, and it was 2 years ago yesterday, and it was extremely traumatic. As I shared with you prior to coming on the air, it was like in the Twilight Zone. Like, it was like, is this real? Am I dreaming this? Is it a nightmare? Is it, what? It really, and it has impact. You were talking about projection. How much of what folks do, because you were talking trauma, stems from trauma they had or unhealed trauma from their childhood. So now things have gone on and they didn't get the proper help that they needed, or they kept everything in. Now all of a sudden they have a meltdown. How much of the trauma or repeated traumas over time causes one to snap?
I would say it's all built up. I do a lot of energy healing work myself. That's what I do now, just because of what I've learned and went through, and I want to help as many people as possible. So I see it all the time, and there's never a pointing of a finger. It's just understanding that, when we go through trauma points, and I go through a lot of healings, I work with energy and conversation with my customers and clients, and I'll tell you, it can stem all the way back from somebody's 3 years old, and they have no idea until you start peeling back those layers, and you're like, well, why did that really bother you? I mean, somebody was walking by you and they said X, Y, Z, but it had nothing to do with you. Why did that trigger you? Oh, well, I don't know, da-da-da-da, right? And they go into these layers. And then by the time you're out of it, they're like, well, really? I was 5 years old, and my mother and dad, they were screaming at me when I did something bad, and I was put in a punishment and timeout, right? And then you realize that this trigger point stems all the way back to when they were 3, 4, 5 years old. And it's not until you can go back in and understand that and put your finger on that so that you can heal that. It's inner, child healing. It's very, 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 very effective, I would say. Because then you can release it, go back to the old version of yourself and be like, it's okay. You were okay. You were just 3. You were just 5. You were just 7, whatever that is. And then you can come to an understanding of whether you are ready at that particular moment or not to forgive. I always say, as long as you can accept. Acceptance is the first step. Accept what has happened, right? And then move from there, because then you can grow with the compassion. But it's those levels of layers that I would say almost every one of us has, because we don't understand that our parents or our grandparents or people around us, they're doing the very best they can in the situations that they've been given in life.
Correct. And I keep hearing you say compassion. Let's talk, because that's what really, because when someone, after I had never really experienced like a heavy trauma until like a couple years ago. Of course, we've gone through different life events and, they're unpleasant, whatever, but there's a difference between being like truly traumatized. And so I had that experience a couple of years ago, but at the same time, thinking along those same lines of the person was doing the best that he or she could at the time, and something else was going on. It really wasn't about me. Because this is the thing. I read books, talked to therapists, and it's like, it's really not about you, but boy, does it feel like it's about you, because you're the one that it happened to. So,
of course.
so how do you differentiate that, okay, it wasn't about me, but it happened to me?
Yeah. Well, it comes down to understanding, and first of all, not disregarding your feelings and emotion. I want to make that very clear. We're not robots, right? We're not going to sit there and be like, just shut that emotion off and move on to your healing journey. No, you have to go in and you have to feel it. You feel it to heal it, is what I like to say. You got to go in and you got to cry it out, scream it out, hit your pillow, do whatever is necessary for you. But staying in that predicament, that's where it's no longer going to serve you. And if you can come, I say compassion, because I've taken time to get to this level, right? We have compassion for all people. But when you are in it and it is fresh, you are able and it is okay to have every emotion. You have every right to feel the way you are feeling in any predicament, in any moment in time, because these events happened technically to you, right? So we're not disregarding what has happened to you, the events, the people involved, the disrespect, the betrayal. All these feelings are emotions as humans. We have every right to feel that. That's what makes us human. However, if you are wanting to continue your life and you're wanting to be in a high vibration, if you're wanting to be happy again, if you're wanting to be feeling like your old self again, well, first and foremost, you're probably never going to be that same person again. So what you have to do is you have to meet your next level person. You
Correct.
have to meet your next level self and be like, listen, that version of myself no longer exists. Maybe that version of those other people involved in this event no longer exists. And you have to just come from that level, understanding that, listen, they may have had their own trauma. They went through their own episodes. They went through their own issues. And yes, I was in the line of fire, right? No, normally it's always the people that are closest to you that you're going to feel it the most, and you're going to go through the hardest of times, which is why I hear a lot about with families and friends dissipating, because they know you better than anybody else. They know what's a trigger, but they're just coming from their unhealed pain. And so whatever's unhealed within them, whoever's the closest person to you is 9 times out of 10 going to be the one that hurts you the most. And when we allow that and we give over that power to that person, that's where it becomes, where we get like that unsettling feeling. But again, growing through those, going through the emotions, going through the pain, going through the crying, going through what your soul needs to, because there's a very big difference of feeling it and healing all of that pain and trauma, because there's levels, versus just suppressing it and saving it for a later date. There's a very big difference, right? You can
Absolutely.
say, I don't want to feel this anymore. Yeah, I don't want to feel this anymore. Let me just put that for a later date. I'm okay, right? Like the whole, I'm fine, when we're really not fine.
Correct. And that was exactly in the beginning, particularly. That's because I had to do that. I had to do the I'm fine and put on the happy face and keep moving. Because again, like I said, I wasn't sharing with anybody what happened. It was just, like I said, horrendous. I notice, and I keep hearing you talk, and I want you to explain for the listening audience, when you're talking energy and vibration, what are kind of like you're saying, or what are your definitions, or whenever you're saying, I know what it is, but I want to explode it or explore it for the listening audience. Talk to me a little bit about energy and vibration.
Yeah, I mean, we're all made up of energy. This entire world is energy. Whether we want to believe it, see it, acknowledge it, feel it, it's there, right? This is why I'm an energy healer, and people don't understand unless I'm in person. They're like, can I do it online? Or I don't understand this works. I'm like, well, there's vibration, there's intention, right? This is the same thing that goes to the conversation with manifestation. Energy and vibration for me, and the way I can relate it, especially to when we're talking about forgiveness, is really how you're wanting to feel, right? Everybody knows when we're in a low vibration. When you're in a low vibration, you have feelings that are in that low vibration frequency, such as anger, resentment, frustration, fear, all that kind of those feelings that don't serve you and do not make you feel good. You're having a rough day, then all of a sudden it's trickling, and then you feel like the whole world's falling down, and then, it's raining, it's pouring, and all that. That's a low frequency. That's a low energy because it's not serving your highest and best good. Your highest and best good and what you are here to come into this earth is to be your highest self, is to be happy, is to find your joy, find your compassion, find your fulfillment. And when you just say those words, you can feel in my voice the energy transition. You can feel the frequency. When I'm like, oh, I had a really, bad day, and then this happened, and then this, you can hear that vibration. That's a very low frequency, right? That's just in the conversation here. Energy, when I'm saying, I had the best day, the greatest news, the great people, I'm so grateful for life, I love life, life is always working for me, joy is right, you're changing that frequency. So that's where when you were talking about earlier, Mark, the journaling comes into play. You're writing things down. If it doesn't feel good to say it yet because you're still hurt and you cry and you can't speak about your event or you can't speak about, the good in your life, start writing it down. Then start writing it down, then start, talking about it. Read it aloud. Because your frequency, your vibration that comes out of your voice is so unbelievably powerful. It is very healing. But again, it comes in stages. But when we're talking about energy as a whole, we're all just frequency. And that's why you'll realize that some days, if you're in a high vibration, you'll see everything in the world working out for your highest and best good because
Correct.
You are magnetizing. You're like a magnet. You're seeing all the good in the world. Even though there's still some rough stuff going on in the world, you're only seeing the good. But when you're in a rough, you're having a rough day, you're in a rough period of your life, you'll see all the negative, you might see the news, you might see all these things because it's magnetizing and it's reflecting your energy and your frequency.
So where does overthinking come into this? Because that sounds like, because it's almost like, okay, let's talk about that and then talk about the flipping of the frequencies, like to go from the bad frequency to the good frequency. Because my thing is, I think it's just a matter of overthinking, trying to analyze and like, well, how did this happen? How did that happen? Where did that come from? Did I do this? Did I do that? Why did she do that? Why did he do that? It's like you just sit there and you, like you said, do you want to feel this way? Because your mind is like going on overdrive.
Yeah. So I would say the first thing I would say to that moment, and because I've been there, is that, okay, your mind can go so many places. But really the first thing is what is your outcome? What is your outcome with that? If your outcome is to feel better, is to heal, is to grow, what is what's happened to you? Because you can go in circles and circles. I've been there, right? This person did this. I can't believe, why would they do this? I don't know. They didn't know who I was, right? They didn't know who I was for 30 years. Oh my goodness. How could they? I'm my worst enemy. Like I did it. I actually had a whole chapter in my book on this. But then,
correct.
Hold the phone. Like I can literally try to sit here and spend all my time, all my energy, all my days and trying to understand maybe how their crazy's doing or how their unhealed trauma's doing. Or I can really take responsibility, radical responsibility for my life and from my energy and from my feelings. And how can I do that? Okay, great. I have to release that. It may not be your path and it may not be your job to understand why people are acting the way they're acting and why they're saying what they're doing. And, all these things, because if you're getting wrapped up in that, you're getting wrapped up with all of the non-essential business that's not really going to serve you in this life. Right? You may never understand why somebody said something to you or did something, but you want to spend your entire life trying to figure it out? I don't. Right? So it's just that, it's a thinking of, while my mind's going everywhere, how can I take back my power? My power is, Well, it doesn't really matter. I'm sending them love. I give them compassion. I wish them well because, again, you really do. And you're like, I wish them clarity. And I hope that they get their understanding and their clarity in their life as well. But for me, I need to take back my power. And how can I heal myself first? Because when you can heal yourself first and really go to the depths within you, that's really going to be what shifts your life for you and for, the next level and next people in your life and all these things, because you're going to grow and you're going to start attracting people that are on the same kind of frequency as you.
Absolutely. Listening audience, I hope you've been with me since 6, but as you always hear me say, I definitely hope you've been with me since 7, because I have a guest on the line, and we are talking about her book, Forgiving When You Can't Forget. And these are the chapters. You just heard her reference that she wrote about it in her book. How your mess becomes your message. Be the victor, not the victim. Removing toxic family plus friends from your life. Letting go of others' thoughts, opinions about you. Rebuilding your life and stepping into your full power. Releasing limiting beliefs plus manifesting your dream life. Healing your heart, taking back your power, choosing you, moving forward. Now, as the words that you're saying that are popping up to me that causes my next question, that's kind of the way the show works, is I always tell publicists and all the authors, I don't work off a question list. My questions are derived from your responses. So you said the word acceptance. I heard you say that. I mean, that for, I think, many of us is difficult. It's just to accept, wow, this really happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great point. That was really what started me with everything I was going through, is accepting that these events took place. Because if we're not accepting them first, how can we begin to heal them? I know sometimes when we say, well, I can't forgive this person yet. I'm not ready. My heart's not there yet. And that's okay. And it's just understanding and give yourself that grace and that ease in those moments and that time. But if you can first just accept, like literally removing the emotions, removing the thought patterns around that event and be like, these events, like as if you're just creating a narrative, right? Today, this event happened. This person was involved. This is what this person said. This is what this person did. You remove those thoughts around there and it just is. It's not until we give these events our power and our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions that they become powerful in our world. So realizing that if you can get to that level of, I'm just accepting that this event and these things happened. They just happened. Yes, they happened to me. But maybe they were doing this and maybe this happened for my greatest good. That, again, and I speak now because it's been 5 years for me, but like it's that level of understanding that, wow, these things, this stuff, this ick, this gross stuff, it happened for a reason that I can now look upon. But in that moment, if you can just get to that first step of accepting what is, that will be a greatest catalyst for change in your entire life.
Absolutely. I'm looking here in the book. It says, life has a funny way of pulling the rug out from under your feet just when you least expect it. Again, like I said, that's exactly what happened for me. July 21st, 2021, the rug was pulled from under my feet. So I was and always had been, quote, Miss Positive, unquote. Deep down, I knew happiness was a choice, and I refused to let fear take over my life. But if there was a time when my faith was shaken to the core, this was it. Mm-hmm. See, like, yeah, that's what I totally, because I'm Mr. Positive. You were Miss Positive. I'm Mr. Positive. Yeah. So
it's true. The life really does, like, it challenges that. Here, let me give you, as I say, I won't, a crapola sandwich here, right? Like, how are you going to handle this? Are you still going to be Mr. and Mrs. Positive, right?
That's exactly right.
It's so true. And in that moment, I remember going back to that moment. It really was because I was shaken to my core. My mom was diagnosed with cancer. I was, with her by her side, going through all the feelings, all the emotions, being her rock in that moment, but yet still trying to find my healing and my emotions and all of that. And I can talk about this now because I've done several layers of healing myself. But if there was ever a moment, this is what shook me to my core. It shook me to my core, not knowing the outcome. When we do not know the outcome, or, it's that uncertainty in life where we're really challenged, because when we don't have our definitive answers, or our foundation or our root is really grounded in something, and we don't have all the answers, we are tested in our greatest of moments to realize you don't know what the next step is going to be. You don't know what the next event's going to be. You don't know what the next word is going to be. So how are you going to react in this situation? That's going to test your positivity. And
you're absolutely right.
From that level.
Oh, test positivity. Yes, you're absolutely right. The next thing you said, people pleasing my way through life and just taking what life threw at me with a smile and a quote, no problem, I got this, I'll figure it out kind of attitude. Yep. That's what I'm saying. I'm going through highlighting like, yep, that's me. Like, whoa, is she talking about herself or is she talking about me? Just because you are dealt with crappy cards in life, and I changed the words only because we're on the air, doesn't mean you have to play. I love that, by the way. Anyway, I love the fact that you called it raw.
Yes.
I'm reading through it, and I was telling my friend, I said, oh, I love the way she writes. I love it. She calls it as it is. Just because you are dealt with, and like I said, I'll say crappy cards in life doesn't mean you have to play them. You feel me. What I have grown to learn over the past several years in my spiritual journey is that life is what you make of it. So we really do have to get to this point. You're talking about that you are worth it, that you are someone, you are you. In other words, you said you have permission to offend. I love the way you said permission to blank offend. Absolutely. I know that's right. Because when you're the people pleaser, when you're Mr. or Miss Positive, you're always worrying about everybody else's feelings and yours is last. Oh.
That's right. And I always say this, I'm like, they're the first people to say whatever's on their mind, right? When you're a people pleaser, you're just trying to be that person to help everybody and be there for everybody. And, you're quite literally a chameleon. You're changing yourself to accommodate others, but it's really because you want to see them happy.
Right.
You're working so hard at that, right? And then I say this in my book, too. You're working so hard that you lose yourself. So it's that reminder, like, you matter. Here's your permission to offend in life and start taking back your power and acting like your true, authentic self, because guess what? You can do everything right. Right? I say this very much in my book. You can do everything right by paper, looking in on life, being the best version of yourself, being there for anybody and everybody, and still be called, in my case, a murderer.
Correct. In my case, it was another name, but yes, yours was murderer, mine was another. And you're absolutely right. Bingo. Right. You could do everything that you're supposed to do, everything correct, and still wind up getting screwed.
That's right. You can. And so it's really taking back that power and understanding, like, hey, this is just what I'm going through, and I have every right to feel the way I'm feeling. I have every right to say what I'm saying. I have every right to speak up for myself. I have every right to live my life in whatever capacity I want to live in. And whoever is around me, if they are judging me, it's because, again, you're triggering a point of them. Maybe you're doing what I did, going on a sabbatical, and everybody looks at you like, oh, that must be nice, right? But in reality, they don't understand what I just went through, and nor do they have to, right? So you can literally be living your life for other people, or you can be living it for yourself. And that simple reminder to be like, hey, you have one life.
Right.
If you want to get on a plane and travel across the world, do it. If you want to, quit your job and go do it, go do it. Like, live life.
Correct.
Live in that vibration, like fulfillment, joy. That, and sometimes it's extreme, and sometimes people look at it and are like, you are absolutely lost your marbles. And you're like, I absolutely have, but it makes me feel good, and it works.
No, you're absolutely right. I could not agree with you more. That's what I say. I'm going through the book like, oh my God, was she there on July 21st? I'm sitting here reading this like, was she there July 21st, 2021? Like, is she talking about me or is she talking about her? You were not put on this earth to make someone or anyone else happy. Other people's happiness, health, and well-being are not your responsibility. Once again, you repeat that a few times. Other people's happiness, health, and well-being are not your responsibility. I know folks who've, been in relationships where they felt like their voice, they lost their voice. They like you said, you lose who you are. Like, I have no voice in this. I know folks that was been in that situation. So you have one life. I'm being kind again. And I'm making myself clear, one life. Absolutely. See, I see you. I asked the same question. How could another human being treat someone this bad?
Yeah.
I had that same question.
And it's hard in the moment, because when we realize that I could never imagine doing, saying, acting this way towards another human, let alone our, whether it's a counterpart, whether it's
Correct.
a spouse, whether it's a family member, the closest people in your life. You couldn't even imagine. But we could say in there, like, I don't understand, and that will keep you stuck. And I was there for a while when I was going through my healing, but understanding that, wow, you know what, they were just grieving too. They lost somebody too. I was just the target of their unhealed trauma, right? And you were just the target of somebody else's pain.
Correct.
And a lot of us people pleasers, we are, right? And, you say it sometimes like, were you there? Were you in that event? And it's like, yes. In a capacity, yes. I work with energy all the time. You are magnetized, right? Your frequency. We're all walking each other home. We're all walking each other through this life. And that's another reason why I wrote the book. It was like, you know what? I could sit there and hold all this information, all this wisdom, all this compassion, all this knowledge to myself because it's helped me grow. Or I realized that almost every single person is going through this part in their life. And how can I help them? Easiest way was to write a book. This is what I went through. This is my, crapola sandwich. This is my situation. And you can see your situation maybe in mine. Maybe you can feel the same feelings. And how can you, especially if somebody's going through it in that moment, how can we help guide them out of that emotion and out of those situations quicker and realize that they're not alone? That's the biggest thing, is realizing that we are not alone.
Correct.
You feel very much alone in situations that we go through, right?
Absolutely. You have, and you said it earlier while we were talking, you said we have two choices. We can continuously chase happiness and joy, or we can remain stagnant, stuck, miserable, and pissy. I, too, have personally had my handful more than dump truck loads of crapola sandwiches thrown my way, but I'm still here. Now, this was a key point for me, too. I'm still here. I'm still standing. I'm still chasing joy like it's my job because I am worth it. I'm still choosing me. Even in those moments when I had the closest of family members in my life trying to rip me down and slander my name, been there, done that, my intentions, my life, and my reputation, I told you on the phone earlier, what happened there, I still chose grace. Therein the forgiveness comes in. And for many people, they say, you're out of your mind. I'd have to get some get back. I would get back at him. I would get back at her. I would make sure I'd make their life miserable. I would make their life hell for the next how long for what they did to me. But you're saying grace.
Yes. And I had a couple people in my life. They were looking at me like, I don't understand how you did it. I don't understand how. And I'm like, you know what? What came down is I would just kept checking and being like, Carolyn, what's your outcome? If I'm going to lash out with all my unhealed trauma pain, because I had every right to, right? I had every right. I had all, like you say, like we have our armor on. We have our loaded capacity. Our loaded guns. We're ready to fire. Boom, 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 right? Like we have everything. But in reality, I'm like, after I do that, after I come at them and say, you did this and how could you and blah, 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 and really let them have it and or give them a taste of their own medicine, how am I going to feel after that?
Correct.
Like, what is that really doing to my life? Is it making it better? Am I going to sleep better at night? Because if so, I would say we probably should check in with that. Check in with that point of our life. Be like, well, why do I need that in my life, right? I just come to, like, I don't want to live in negativity. It doesn't feel good. I don't want to try to prove my point anymore. I am exhausted. I have literally gone through my own grief. I've lost my very best friend in this world. I don't have the time or energy to give to others who are directly choosing to see the worst in me. And when you see that, and there's people that are going to want to see the worst in you because they can't see the best in themselves.
No, and absolutely right.
And it's hard and it's a challenge, but you know what? It's worth it. It is worth it.
You're absolutely right. And you notice I'm staying with the book because I'm telling you, I felt your book. And you talk energy, you talk vibration. I felt your. Matter of fact, it's rare that when I do have the guest on, like you're on this morning, that I've read the book from cover to cover. Because most of the time I've skimmed the book or I've read the first couple of chapters enough for me to talk my way through the interview. But in your case, I've read the book from cover to cover.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I believe that sometimes these crappy situations need to happen to push you into the path in life that you were meant to go on, and that will serve your highest self. That there is something greater out there for you that you may not have been seeing before because there was too much toxicity around you. Now, this particular next line, ooh, that meme kept coming at me. Every time I looked, whether I was on Instagram, whether I was on Facebook, whatever I was on, that one kept jumping out at me, the one I'm getting ready to read. I once heard, and boy, did this resonate hard with me. Same here. Quote, God removes people in your life because he heard the conversations they were having about you and their negative intentions towards you that you did not. That jumped out at me everywhere I turned, that God heard some things that you didn't.
Yeah, God saw the things, he heard the things. And so we may not understand why people are removed from our lives or situations may happen to us in life, but if you can release that and fully surrender into God and your faith, man, you may not understand now why that's happening, but you'll understand later because and I see this now. I see that these events, these series of events that even happened in my own life, it has literally radically changed my life. I can say that I don't think I ever would have gotten where I am today with my beliefs and helping people and all these things if I didn't go through the roughest of times. And in those moments, I may not understand, we had these conversations with God. God, why is this happening to me? Why are you doing this? I don't understand, right? And it's okay if we can be like, listen, he's seeing the things that we don't see. He's actually protecting us, and we don't even know it then. Again, when you're in the moments, you're in the events, it's hard to see that. But if we can try to remember that just one step at a time, one day at a time, and I tell you, it's worth it. I look back and I'm like, I am so unbelievably grateful. There's so much good things that have come from since my mom transitioned out of this life that has shaped myself and my family's life, and I am forever grateful. I went through one of the most hard, traumatic life predicaments in my life with the closest of people. But guess what? When sometimes you shift out and you remove the toxicity out of your life, you're able to catapult into your greatest life yet.
Absolutely. And sometimes we don't even know we're in the toxicity. We don't even know we were in it until we got out of it.
That's the truth.
I mean, for me, the word toxic and toxicity just came on my radar screen over the last 3 or 4 years. It seemed like it was a buzzword now. Every time I looked, again, toxic and toxicity. So I'm looking here. You said, have you ever been called a murderer? I have. You were just alluding to that. I've been called some names that I know good and well didn't do nor perform and this and that. Yeah, like I said, the list does go on and the daggers get deep. Yes, the daggers do.
They do. They do.
That's the thing. This stuff that we're talking about, it really does hurt. I mean, it's not as if we're just walking around here like, I know we're Mr. and Miss Positive, but that doesn't mean Mr. and Miss Positive does not get hurt.
That's right, and I think you brought up a good point. You might see somebody now, but you don't realize where they were. A lot of times people are in this life, and you might be like, wow, how's this person so happy all the time, or how are they in such a vibration? Now, don't get me wrong, it is a choice, but they don't realize that they may have come from the most hardest of times, and that is what made them who they are today. That's what shifted us into our highest selves, our highest vibration, our highest lives right now, is because we went through all that turmoil. It's not like you just wake up today like, I just handle things with grace all the time. But you have to go in and feel it. And we did. We were in those dark night of the soul days, right? We were in those moments. Remember, let's not forget. But that's what's got us to where we are today. So before you look at somebody and be like, wow, they just have it all together. I wish I had their life or blah, blah, blah. Maybe you should be, think twice about saying, I wish I had their life, because you have no idea. You really have no idea.
That is correct.
But again, understanding coming from a place of being grateful, because we can do that now, right? We may not understand the
That's
moment.
right.
And it's still fresh, right? It's still fresh. I still have days today that I'm like, ooh, why does that still bother me?
That's right.
That gives me an opportunity to go back and be like, you know what? I think this is why it's bothering me. Let me dig into that. Let me feel into that, right? So that I can release this, because it's no longer serving me. So, yeah.
So, again, from the book. So let's try this. Let's stop making everything your problem. Let's stop making it all about you when in reality it has nothing to do with you. And let me also make this part clear too. This does not give others a free pass to treat you like crap either. The deep understanding and healing work you are doing doesn't give them the right to continue to walk all over you like a damn doormat either. No, no, no. But harnessing your own, because see, that's it too. You know, a lot of times when you in these situations, it's kind of like, because we're Mr. and Miss Positive, it's like, well, okay, I'll take it. But that don't, just because you're Mr. and Miss Positive don't mean people can get to stomp and walk all over you and abuse you and do what they want either. That's right.
And it's true. There's a difference of understanding that, hey, I'm not going to let these things bother me, and I'm not going to allow these things to get to me. But then when you're like, let me make sure there's a boundary, though, because when people understand, they're like, oh, they're Miss Positive. I can just do whatever I want to them, right? No, hold on. During this level of understanding that people have unhealed trauma, and having that compassion towards them, it's an understanding so that it gives you the freedom in your life to not get triggered as much or not come at them with your unhealed trauma. You get to actually have these tools in your tool belt to help you through life. But there's a very big difference of saying, wait, but here's my boundary in life now. My boundary is I don't allow people to walk all over me anymore.
Correct.
I don't allow them to talk to me this way anymore. And when you do that, I'm sure you've been through this, Marc, where you start doing this and you realize sometimes just who your true and few are.
That's correct.
You were serving that purpose in their life. You were serving the purpose. You were doing something for them. And when you remove that, version of yourself and you grow and you're like, this is no longer serving me, you then rock their boat. So then they're going to come at you, laughing at you like, you're no longer serving that,
Right.
Where have you gone? It's your fault. I'm not in your life because of this. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm just not serving that purpose in your life anymore. I'm not being your doormat anymore.
That is
because
correct.
I'm taking my power back. Again, boom.
Right. I mean, one of the things, most of the time I've gotten in trouble is because I did not set boundaries. And if there is one thing that I did get out of this last experience, is exactly what you just said in terms of setting. And there's a couple of things going on. One has been life experience and age. Now, that's why I appreciated your book so much in terms of the way you wrote it, because I have absolutely no filter whatsoever now. That was not always the case. I mean, I would always kind of like consider, well, do I say this? Because if I say this, I don't want conflicts. But now I really don't care. That does not mean you have to be nasty or rude. But in terms of if I see it and want to say it and call it, it's going to be said. And whether you get offended or not, then that's on you. But at this age, again, another couple of weeks, I'll be 61 years old. I have absolutely no filter whatsoever. And again, that doesn't mean I have to be nasty to anybody, and based on my experience, and because of the fact that I didn't always express what I was truly feeling, and because I got treated like the doormat, that's why I made a vow that will never happen to me again.
Yes, I love that. Well, I commend you on that, and happy early birthday.
Thank you very much.
I have to say, you're so welcome, because it does. It comes from this point in our life when we're like, you know what, I've done this for so long, and even look, I've done this for so long, and look where it's gotten me here. Right? I'm still in a really tough time being called all these crazy names, and I was being the very best version, or so I thought.
Yes.
I was literally like, I say it shouldn't come at the expense of yourself. You should not be, giving everything of yourself to everybody else and feeling like you're left with nothing. And these people say whatever they want to you, and that's okay. And you understand. You come, oh, I understand what you're going through. I still love you, all these things. But in reality, you're like, well, hold the phone. When I'm starting to speak out my voice, all of a sudden now I'm offending you. It's like, whoa. Right? So,
correct.
Permission to offend. Speak your truth. Say what's on your mind. Those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter. That's a big thing. The people that you're going to start attracting in this life, if they truly love you unconditionally, they will accept you for who you are in whatever capacity you're in.
That is correct. And now you were talking energy. I can feel your energy through the phone. I can feel your energy just out in the quickness of how fast you talk. And I love that because my mind processes that way. I have people that I talk to that when they talk really slow, I'm sitting there like trying to get it out for them. So I love your quick pace in terms of your speaking because, like I said, my mind processes like that. And so I can feel your energy coming all the way up from the south, all the way through these airways. Remember, you said you don't have to explain your decision to anyone if you don't want to. Now, in some respects, that I've always kind of done. I've always made some strange moves. The people always ask me, you were in this and now you're doing that. I remember when I was working for AT&T, I left and went into the Air Force. And they were like, wait a minute, you're working for one of the major corporations in the world and you left to go to, you just got married and you go, yep, why are you doing it? Because I want to. Whenever I left corporate America and I went into education, because I left corporate America and went into education, got my salary cut in half. Folks were like, are you crazy? Why are you went into education? Why are you doing it? Because I want to. So I've had several because I want to moments in terms of not having to explain myself. But again, that line jumped out at me. You don't have to explain your decision to anyone if you don't want to.
That's right. And because sometimes if you're going to say whatever's on your mind and you're going to say, this is why I'm doing it, and you explain yourself and they still don't understand, it's like, whoa, I just wasted all that time. You know, and I'm not saying being disrespectful. And there's a lot of people that, you know, understand what I'm doing, and they may just, I guess in the blanket statement of understanding, like, hey, I understand that this works for you. And that's okay, because I look at some people like, I could not do what you're doing because that doesn't light me up, right? And so you're saying, hey, this job is no longer lighting me up. I'm going to go do this. And be like, oh, but the money matters to you, but happiness matters more to me, right?
You know, it's interesting. You said something earlier about because long ago I read something about anytime people are giving you advice, they're giving it from their photograph. They use the example of a photograph. So they're giving from in their mind what the photograph is, not what the photograph is in your mind. So it's like they're always coming from, like you just said it, they're always coming from the perspective of what they paint the picture to be. And so whenever you do something that's not in the way they would paint the picture or take the picture, that's when they have an issue with you. And it's like, but it's my photograph. It's not yours.
I know. I'm going to relate to that too, Mark, because it's so funny and this is why, like, I don't read a lot of I read some of my reviews on my books and things like that, but I'm like, wait, everybody's going to have an opinion. I've read, you know, comments that people are like, this is terrible, and then some people are like, this is somebody else's story. I'm like, wait a minute, this is my story. And I can laugh about this now because I'm like, whoa, there's just so many levels of unhealed trauma, and everybody's going through something where I'm like, I mean, simply, like, I like how you said, again, when your people find your book, they're going to resonate with you, right? Like my story, I resonated because, you know, I keep my language. I say sometimes I have a sailor mouth, and I like to just say it as is because, honestly, that's how most of us are thinking, and so I just say it. I say it how it is. And so the people that are going to resonate with it are going to resonate with it, and people that don't are going to leave comments like they do saying, I can't believe her vulgar mouth. And that's okay. And so just accepting people for where they are. Listen, this works for her, wouldn't work for me. But realizing that let's not judge those people. They're different. Let's not judge their life. Let's not talk all this blah, 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 all this, you know, we're setting up those karma for ourselves. Let's not talk ill. Let's just be like, you know what? That dress looks really good on her. Not my forte, but she is rocking it, right?
Correct.
Coming from that, you know, that healed place, like, you do you, boo, and I'll do me.
I know that's right. But that's I was actually reading the chapters to my friend, and I told her, I said, I love the fact that she calls it as it is. She said, I mean, you're right. You said it exactly the way I would be thinking it. Because for me, I was like, when this whole thing was going down, and the listening audience, many may know, some may not know, but I was having a lot of WTF moments. I mean, it really was. And I guess I can't say it on the air, and some of you can find out to figure it out. But yeah, I was doing a lot of WTF. I was doing, so when I'm reading your book, I was sitting there like, yes, that's exactly the way I was feeling. I'm able to do this because when you start learning, growing, and healing your own life, you begin to realize not everything is so black and white. And honestly, here's the ugly truth that no one wants to hear. Everyone is going through something that you most likely know nothing about and has everything to do with them and not you. You were talking about a couple of minutes ago about not caring, because I'm in the chapter now where you're saying once you get to that point where you really don't care what other folks think about you, letting go of others' thoughts and opinions about you. Because you alluded earlier about the sabbatical, which I thought was funny. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I might wind up doing that one day. You never know. Where you just kind of said, you know, we're out.
And they're like, they're running. And it's like, not running, just doing what works for me.
And you went to an island.
I did, yes. I did. I went to St. Thomas. In the sequence of my events, it's very fascinating. You know, my mom and I went to that island. It was like a place we were visiting years before she passed. And all the sequence of events, you probably read in my book, but like finding the leaf from that place and a letter from my mom and all these things.
Right.
I'm like, you know what? Synchronicities. I don't believe that, you know, everything's happening for a reason. Everything's happening for us, around us, right? And so we just have to be aware of the messages from God, the messages from your angels, the messages all around you. Once you get to that point of, wow, what is this? My signs were, for a while, I'd wanted to get away. And this year was a perfect we weigh into that. I believe that if you have the opportunity, and I say this because I know some people may not have the opportunity to do this, and it may not work for you, and that's okay. For us, it works out. We threw everything in storage, and we went over. I got one-way tickets for me, my husband, and my kids, and my dogs. This is the hilarious part. And we just went overseas, right? And, not overseas, but, the islands, and it was the best thing. I had people like, oh, must be nice, and then we can get into the whole money conversation and all that, but must be nice, but it's like, whoa. I just didn't leave that because I needed to get away. In order to, sometimes that's how you feel. You're not running from anything, but sometimes we need to quiet and dim the chatter and dim the projections and dim the energy around us where we're like, I need to heal now. And what's going to serve my soul? What's going to light me up again? I needed to start feeling like myself again. And so I'm like, I need to go over and I need to be present with my husband and my kids. And I want to laugh again. And I want to go to a beach. And I want to cry. And I want to heal. And I want to journal. And all these things. And sometimes you have to remove yourself from your environment to do that. Because you can go through the day-to-day. And when you're in it, you're going to have people asking you about right, all these things where I'm like, sometimes it's in the silence where we grow the most. And that's why I believe so much in that sabbatical. It was a radical move. And people didn't understand. I'm like, all my stuff's in storage and I'm out. And I have no idea when I'm coming back.
That was exactly, for listening audience, that's exactly what was in the book. She just put all her stuff in storage. They went to the island, one-way ticket, because I was fascinated with it. I was like, wow, she was serious. Talk about burn the bridge, one-way ticket. I don't know when I'm going to come back. And so that's in the book. And we're not going to give you the whole thing, but I'm giving you excerpts of it. And Carolyn is doing a wonderful job whetting your appetite. Because at the end of the day, I want you to get the book. I really do. Whenever I give her the opportunity to promote, we'll say everything but the dollar amount, but she's going to let you know where you can find the book. I'll let you know where I found it. But it is a wonderful read. And like she said, all of us either have gone through, are going through, or will go through. And you're going to need to kind of know how to handle yourself because the emotions and the feelings are going to be pretty much the same. You're going to have to, like she said, are you going to stay there and stay stuck or are you going to move on? Going back to the book, that point where you have done everything right in your heart, all while sacrificing your own well-being, and yet here you are being called a murderer from your own family. I was called something else, but I get it. I felt it. It's just mind-boggling sometimes when you think to ourselves, what happened and how did I get here? I told you that WTF. What went so terribly wrong? But you know what? It's okay because like I said before, it is not your responsibility to prove you're innocent. That was another hallelujah moment for me. It is not your job to convince people to understand you when they are choosing to not see the best in you. Because guess what? Despite what anyone says or thinks about you, it doesn't really matter. What matters is what you think of yourself. And for the record, I think you are a rock star. Do you hear me? Yes, you. You are here reading this right now. You need to hear it just like I needed to. You are incredible. You are amazing. You are enough. You are such a beautiful soul, and I see you. I hear you. I acknowledge you. And don't you ever change. That was powerful.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. It's pretty surreal when you hear somebody else reading your book like, wow, I wrote that book. It's really surreal. And it's true because sometimes when you're like that whole feeling of you feel alone, I just wanted to be that person for somebody that I needed the most in that moment. And that's why I wrote the book too, is realizing that here's my story, but my story is just a small piece of it. It's what I've learned and what I've grown from and how I can help other people deal with their mess, and I say that in a good way because our message becomes our message, right? Becomes who we are. But if I can just give 1 ounce of understanding to say, hey, listen, I see you. I feel you. I understand you. And you're not alone. And it's okay to feel your feelings. It's okay to be in this moment. But guess what? You also have a choice. And I want this for you. I want you to be in a high vibration. I want you to get over and move through this and heal this and grow from this because you're not meant to just be miserable for your whole life. You can.
Correct.
Choose to do that. And you have every right to be there because of the events that happen. But is that really going to serve you? Is that what you want your life mission to be? Is that what you want to talk about in 20 years? You want to still be, talk about the same story. You want to talk about, like, me. I can talk about 5 years ago. Like, yeah, I jumped on a plane, threw myself in storage. It was hilarious. But at the moment, it was so powerful. It was so powerful. And there's so much growth and so many learning lessons there that now I can share, like, hey, that's what it looked like for me. It may not look like that for you, but if you're feeling that, you're not alone, and it's okay, right? Because when you're in those moments and you have a lot of your circle, your close circle of friends and family, they're probably not going to understand because they may be going through the same thing, right?
Absolutely correct. So it says here, so don't worry about what you can't control, honey. Control the controllable. It isn't your job to decide someone else's fate. It isn't your job to decide whether someone else is worthy of forgiveness. Now, that was interesting. So talk about that one, and then we'll get ready to wrap up a little bit. We won't tell the whole book because I want folks to go ahead and get it. But, what about this notion of, I guess that's going back to what you were talking about earlier with judging, because you're like, we don't really decide who is worthy of forgiveness or not. Because, once someone is, for when someone has done something for you, it's like, no, you're not worth forgiving.
Yeah.
No, you did that to me. No, there's no way in heck I'm going to forgive you. I mean, let's talk a little bit about that as we get ready to wrap up.
Yeah, the worthiness thing. A lot of us have, especially for people pleaser, the self-worth issues. I had that a lot growing up where it's like, you never feel like you're doing enough, right? You always could be doing more. You're vulnerable and you're in your lowest of lows. And you actually, like in my case, had literally people telling you how unworthy you were and how terrible you are and that you deserve X, Y, Z and that you're this awful, awful person. My thought process was, if I'm giving into this and I'm giving those thoughts power, then they're controlling my life. Then I'm going to believe them. But if I'm like, wait a minute, let me take a step back. Is this really me? Am I a bad person? Did I really do what they're saying I did? Or is it just what they're thinking? What are these things? Is this me? No, this isn't me. Okay, so if it's not you, who are you? And so when we're here, and a lot of times when you're looking at other people going through situations, maybe it's a traumatic event, in your case, when people looking in on it, they're like, oh, that's terrible. I could never. People don't know until you've been in that predicament. You act and you go through and you say things you have no idea about. But who are we to judge if they're worthy of love? At the end of the day, you're like, I can't believe you did that, and how dare you, and you deserve everything, right? What do we say? You deserve everything bad coming your way because you're a terrible, awful person.
That's correct.
And it's like, wait a minute. Wait, when do we become God? First of all, no. This person is worthy of love. They're worthy of so much. They just hit a rough spot in their life. Again, it comes back to that compassion. Who are we to judge who is worthy of love, who is worthy of forgiveness, who is worthy of everything that they have in life? Because we are all worth it. And if you are seeing that in somebody else, check in with yourself and be like, how's my self-worth? Do I believe that I deserve what I have in my life? Do I believe that I deserve to have this car, this dress, this, that's the 3D stuff. But like, do we need to have all these things? Or, where are we seeing that lack in ourselves? When we project out to other people, I would first say, why am I having this feeling, and where is this unhealed within myself? Because that's really, we're all reflections. We're all mirrors for one another.
Correct.
So who are we to judge?
No, you're absolutely right. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to read this last piece, and then at that point, I'm going to shut the microphone off and give you an opportunity to promote. And at that point, you can say anything with the exception of the dollar amount, any way folks need to contact you, any book signings, how they can purchase your book. You can say anything other than how much it costs. But anything short of that, you can shout anybody out, whatever you'd like to do. So, all right, here we go. Even when the going gets rough, always remember, when there is a will, there is a way. You are resourceful, and you can and will find your way. This brings us to a full circle moment here. Have you ever heard of the Serenity Prayer? If not, you are about to get one of the most liberating and rewarding permission slips yet. So here it goes. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's Reinhold Niebuhr. And there you have it. Don't worry about anything that can and most likely will go wrong at some point in life, but take it with a grain of salt. Find the beauty in it all and keep putting one foot in front of the other, trusting the process called, quote unquote, life. It's always in the surrendering and unconditional love we have for ourselves that is truly reflected from within us to our outer world. So start by shining your light so bright and filling up your cup first, so that it overflows into every other part of life. You may have fallen down, got some bruises, scrapes, or even some broken bones. I mean, you all know my fair share at this point. But it was my decision, much like yours now, to get up, brush the dirt off, fix your crown like the boss you are, and take the very next step in your life with confidence, faith, and the force you know you have inside of you, because you are worth it. Love the book. I honestly love the book.
Thank you, Mike.
And like I said, I connected with it, and now I know why, because I'm connecting with you. Even as
Yes,
we've
of
talked
course.
this morning, I've connected with you. Like I said, I feel your energy. I really do. Feel your vibe, feel your energy. Now I know why you wrote the book. Now I can understand it for real. Now, for real, as the kids can say. So at this point, I'm going to shut the mic off. You had the opportunity to promote, and then we will be done.
Sure thing. Sounds good.
It's on you.
So it's on me now? Okay. I wasn't ready for this moment, this spotlight moment. Yeah, so you guys can get my book anywhere. I say anywhere, but in reality, it's really on Amazon because it was accessible to everybody. So Amazon, you can get it on Kindle. So Amazon is the paperback version. Kindle is, the electronic version, as well as Audible. I wanted to make it also with my voice, so you felt my energy, you felt my story. And so it's there. And I just want to say a quick shout out, just thanking, my husband and my kids for helping me through one of the hardest predicaments of my life, and my dad who was with me. And I say this because sometimes it's those true and few that really just help you through, and realizing your power. And there's going to be some people in your life that are still going to be there for you, reminding you that you're amazing. Sometimes you may not have anybody. Sometimes you may have a couple few, and just be grateful for that. And if not, you're going to find your soul tribe. Keep shining your light. Keep finding you. You are worth it, and I'm so proud of you because you've gotten this far. So hope you guys enjoy my book. It's my life mission to help anybody and everybody I can move through any kind of trauma in their life. So thank you. Thank you, Mark. It was such a pleasure this morning.
Well, same here, Carolyn. Same here. Trust me, the feeling's mutual. We will be in touch because I do record the show, and I will be sending you the links. I archive it on my YouTube channel, as well as I'll send you an MP3 link. And once you receive them, you are free to do anything you would like with them. You can e-blast them, share them out to the world, throw them away, trash them. You can do whatever you want to do with them. Once I send them to you, they are yours. And again, like you were talking about that tribe, like I told you, I only had about maybe 10 people that really got the whole shebang. And that truly was my tribe. Those were the folks that were saying, you're going to be all right. You're going to make it. You're going to do it. You'll be all right. Those were the folks. That was my tribe. So I know exactly what you're talking about. So again, I thank you for rising early with me this morning. And like I said, I will definitely be in touch, and I will get these links to you.
Thank you so much, Mark. It was such a pleasure, and I really appreciate you.
Same here. I appreciate you as well. All right. Have a great day, and I'll be in touch.
You too.
All right.
Good. Have a good one.
Take care now.
You too.
All
Bye.
right. Bye-bye.